Well, apparently, a lot of people like the 12 gauge slug gun for bear protection if you use the right slug, and we've got some information on that one. And it looks like someone thinks Ron Spomer is obsolete or outdated, maybe something even worse. So join us quickly because I might not be here much longer. Ron, earlier today, while listening to a recent podcast of yours, I heard a person challenging the long-standing system of zeroing rifles using maximum point-blank range. Well, I am here to say that this old-school method is still as good as ever. I use the Jack O'Connor maximum point-blank range system, which calls for zeroing 3 inches high at 100 yards, and then you hold dead on out to 300 yards. And with my Browning A-Bolt Classic stainless rifle with a loophole 3.5 to 10 power by 40 millimeter VX3I HD and a hand-loaded 140 grain SST bullet, I'm good to 300 yards. So last season with that rig, I took 8 deer out to 300 yards, and they were all one-shot kills. The meat is used by all of us, our friends and families, and a food bank program that's run by my wife Tracy in our community. I have also hunted regularly in the U.S., in 10 states, including Alaska, in many Canadian provinces, and several trips to New Zealand. Sounds like Wayne has quite a bit of experience, guys. Also, Ron, I have watched this growing trend in new age technology. Thermal imaging, Bluetooth to phone rangefinders, video filming rifle scopes that see into the next galaxy, experts who decry rifles that don't shoot a quarter MOA, and these 10-shot detachable magazines. And, well, for those who think the only way is the new age technology, well, my results say otherwise. I'm in my early 60s, and I've been hunting for 45 years. Every year, I own a number of rifles in a variety of calibers and cartridge combinations, but I personally harvest about 20-plus deer a year, minimum, and mainly fallow deer and red deer. I have a Ruger M77 in 270 Winchester, Miopta 3.5 by 10 by 42 millimeter with a 1-inch main tube scope on it, and I shoot 130 grain hand-loaded Remington Core-Lock bullets in that one. Then I have a Winchester Model 70, and that's got loophole 30 millimeter tube scope on it, a VX3I HD with that CDS dial system, and an illuminated reticle using 145 grain ELDX bullets. It works great out to 500 yards, but I mostly use it on targets rather than hunting because I get everything done with that simpler system. So there you go, folks. This is what somebody down in Tasmania thinks of the maximum point-blank range system and new technology versus the old stuff. But of course, in his 60s, he's another old fud like me. But as we always say around here, old fuds get her done. Well, let's see. We've got another patron here named Steve. I do not know how old Steve is. Let's see if he's grousing about anything, chewing me out, or slapping me on the back. Ron, can we really have enough rifles? Some people obviously think none of us need more than one. Yeah, Steve, some of them think we don't even need one. Here is some food for thought, Ron. Some fodder for your falderall. I see a lot of people complaining every time a new cartridge comes along. They say, I inherited Grandpa's 4590 falling block rifle back in 48, and it still gets the job done. But now I have to hand load because Hornady and Federal refuse to make factory ammunition. We don't need all these new cartridges. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Steve's on a roll. So this guy is grumbling, then pulls out his 62 Studebaker with 287,000 original miles on it and drives away. Okay, sure, a lot of people just have one center fire rifle, but lots of us buy more guns. The kid gets a 243 from mom and dad when he turns 14. Some years later, he gets a Woodstock 308. An opportunity to hunt out west comes along, and he buys a 7mm Remington Magnum, and then he puts a carbon fiber stock on that one, and that gets him interested in local competitions. So he buys a 6mm Creedmoor with an alloy barrel, and he gets made a partner in the law firm. Celebrates by buying a new high-speed low-drag Park West bolt rifle with a grade 104 Turkish walnut in 300 PRC. This guy's got the disease. Well, then the firm had a banner year, and the bonus money he got will pay for a dangerous game hunt in Namibia. So here comes the 375, not the H&H Magnum, but the Ruger. And on it goes, because rifles required equals rifles on hand plus one. But why do the gun and ammo companies come up with all these cartridges anyway, they say? That fella with more dollars than cents wouldn't have bought all those guns, and he wouldn't have missed them had they not been produced in the first place, and I'd still be able to find my 45-90 ammunition. Well, Steve says the answer to that is it's economic fact that if companies only make guns and ammo for the tried and true cartridges of the first half of the 20th century, many, if not most, of those companies would be out of business. Sure, our Studebaker driving friend and one gun for life folks would buy a box of ammo every year or two for their annual zero check and maybe 2 shots at a whitetail, except they wouldn't, because gun and ammo companies wouldn't sell enough guns and ammo to make any money, so you wouldn't be able to find any factory ammunition. Bottom line, it's economic reality. Companies grow or they go away. Do we really want to go back 60 years? Annual sales of Studebakers and RC Cola answer that question. Well, that's an interesting way of putting it, Steve, but I've been saying that for quite a while. Anytime folks grouse about these new cartridges and new rifles and all this, I've always said, guys, it's just an option. No one's forcing you to buy any of it, but I do think it's important to keep churning things like this to gin up sales, because that's why companies go into business. They go into business to make money, and the fact that they make certain rifles and cartridges that appeal to some of us, wonderful for those of us who like it. If you don't, just ignore it. But don't say we should stop trying, we should stop producing new things, because these companies staying in business assure us that we're going to be able to buy our 30-06 cartridges and our 45-90s or anything else that's out there. We've got to keep interest up. It all matters. Well, appreciate that, Steve. Comparing it to a Studebaker was pretty cool. All right, let's see. This is from Boy, Girl, and Dad. I hear from this gentleman quite a bit. Let's see what he has to say. He says, Ron, I cannot stand it when this channel even hints that some new things are going to make some other things obsolete. With that line of thought, maybe Ron Spomer is obsolete and just outdated, a has-been to retire and fade off into the sunset. Put that on Field and Scream mother-in-law deer suit and wait for the proverbial end. He had not guessed while out grazing. I'm not following him there. Oh, I just bet old Ron is going to squash this comment. Aha! Didn't squash it there, boys and girls of Dad.
No, I found that comment.
Of course. You guys, you've got to understand, the worst things you say about me, the more Betsy's going to put them up in front of me, so I start reading them like this and go, uh-oh. No, that's okay, guys. You know, whether you think I'm full of it or not, or a washed up has-been, I get it, and you're certainly welcome to your opinion. I'm not going to appeal to everyone. But I will say this. What I do try to develop here is, or to produce for you, is information as I've discovered it. Guys, I didn't just pop out of the woodwork yesterday. You'd never guess by looking at me. I have been around doing this stuff since the 1960s. I started hunting in the 1960s, and I'm not bragging, but I have been fortunate, extremely fortunate, to have a career as a communicator in this business. So I went from writing and selling still photographies of hunting scenes and stuff in the magazines to doing some television shows, and then this YouTube stuff and blogs and all sorts of things. And that has given me some, I think, some fairly educational experiences with guns and ammo. The fact that I'm able to borrow all kinds of guns and different cartridges and ammos and stuff just kind of gives me a leg up on most folks who have to go out and buy one. I just get to borrow it for a while, so I learn a lot more than I normally would have. And what I try to do is give you the straight scoop of my experiences. But of course, many of you realize the reality of bias. Some of us have a bias toward bolt action rifles or lever action rifles or big fat cartridges, heavy bullets, fast bullets, you name it. And obviously I do as well. I don't like much of the modern stuff with all the all the attachments and the holes in the stocks and the adjustable combs and all the rest of it. I don't know. I'm an old fud. But that doesn't mean I can't cover it or don't cover it. And if I have a bias and I say something like, boy, I think this is an ugly rifle, you know what I'm saying. Doesn't mean it's no good. Just means I personally don't like it. So the bottom line is that I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. I'm not trying to sell anything specific other than my books. Oh, and my knife, the Ron Spomer knife. By the way, I need to tell you about this one. They've got a special on it. This is a Father's Day special. So if you are looking for something that's really going to get Dad's eyes or Grandpa's eyes to light up, this classic hunter-style knife from Knives of Alaska, I suggest would really do the job. This is made with magna-cut steel, one of the finest, sharpest edged and holds an edge well steels out there. Pretty new stuff. This is the Ron Spomer signature knife. So if you don't like me on there, don't get one because I'm on there. But you can also get a personalized one for your dad. Put his name on there. They'll do that for you. This thing is a full tang hunting knife. Most good hunters will understand the benefits of that. The handle is a G10 composite material, which is impervious to moisture and extremely tough and durable. It's got some little notches on it, so it's got a good texture to it so you don't lose your grip. Got a little bump right here so you don't slide forward on the thing. It's got some gimping or jimping on top so you get some good control. And I think the blade is just about the right length for general purpose hunting work, from whitetails and pronghorn up to moose. So if you're looking for something for Dad, check it out. They are offering 10% off on the normal price of these and free shipping. So contact Knives of Alaska and ask for the Classic Hunter Ron Spomer Outdoors Edition. We'd sure appreciate it, and I'll bet your Dad will too. Now, let's get back to Matt, who's writing in and saying on the topic of having people other than Ron making videos for the Ron Spomer channels, I think it's great. You get the benefit of a trustworthy channel endorsing the opinions of people with a different perspective and experience. If it keeps the channel going with more content for longer, who can complain about that? Well, Matt, that is a refreshing outlook. I really appreciate that. And that is essentially what we're doing here with Tate and Joseph and some other guys showing up from time to time. I figure how much of me can people take before they get sick of it? So we're offering fresh perspective. Now we've got some 20-somethings on, so we get that perspective. But I also bring on some of my old friends, so we keep plenty of the 60 and to 70-year-old types out there for perspective. And then Joseph brings along the mid-40s class of hunter. So he's kind of bridging the gap between the young ones and me. So I think it works out pretty well. It's sort of like having Grandpa and his grandson and his great-grandkids all in the same show. So we will keep that up, and you guys keep letting us know how that works for you. It seems like everybody's really enjoying this.
Plus, it is more fun to have Tate and his videographers other than just you and me.
Yeah. Betsy has got a lot more fun to have these young guys out there with the cameras and doing all the work so she doesn't have to. And it's also more fun to get the interactions between me and them so I don't start yelling at Betsy for not holding the camera right. And she's yelling at me for getting to say something about my knife. It works. It just plain works. And we're having a lot of fun with these guys. I just hope they don't bring too much of the humorist out in me because I have a tendency to go a little bit too far with the jokes sometimes. But that's why Betsy's in the background to thump me on the head when I get a little too wild. Now let's hear from Jonathan. Hey, Ron, I love listening to the videos while I'm at work, when it's slow, or when I'm at home, and I love all these discussions. But I would like to know what your thoughts are on Sporterized rifles. I know it was a huge thing back in the day when they were a dime a dozen, but now it seems like it's almost taboo. I love my military surplus guns, and I've already gotten a decent collection going. But last month, I picked up a 1903 made by Rock Island Arsenal for about $230. That was already Sporterized. The receiver had already been drilled and tapped, so it's never going to be worth what it was as an original. I went and bought a new custom stock for it, and I put a nice Burris scope, and I plan on using it as a hunting rifle that looks good enough that it could be passed down to my kids. Someday I should have restored it. Some say I should have restored it, but I see it as better to take what it already is and make that even better. What do you think? Well, Jonathan, I think you get to do whatever you want. I understand where you're coming from. These old Army rifles, and Joseph and I covered a couple of them in a recent video where we compared the Enfield 303 British and the 30-06 in the 1903 that you're talking right here. And they were in original condition. So yes, they're extremely valuable that way. But like you said, if someone's already messed with it, cut the barrel back or changed the chambering or changed the stock or something, and you've got it now, it pretty much lost all of its collector value, so you might as well make it a functional, usable hunting rifle. And it sounds like that's just what you're doing. And yeah, you know what? I wish I'd have been a little more old-fashioned when I was a kid and you could pick these things up. You'd go into a gun store, and sometimes they would be stacked up in a barrel. And then you'd look at them and go, "Ooh, what are these clunky old military rifles? Who would want one of those?" And then I'd go to the rack and look at all the new Marlins and Rugers and Remingtons and Winchesters and Savages. And oh boy, I didn't want that old junk. Now that I'm older and I appreciate what was going on in those days, wish I'd have picked them up because you could get them for under $20 sometimes. Wow. So keep your eyes open, guys. One of the things that is happening now is that a lot of old timers are passing away. They have estate sales, or their family takes the gun to a dealer and it ends up on the used shelf. So you might find some deals that way. So keep snooping. All right, this is Philip. Philip says, "Where is Covey?" That's all? Where is Covey? Covey is downstairs. Covey had a bit of an injury, and she's not getting around as well as she used to. She still runs really well and hunts, but she can't jump up, and she can't sit on the chair the way she used to very comfortably. So you're going to... Looks like we're going to get a little Covey cameo if we can get her up the stairs. She goes kind of slowly. But Philip, I appreciate you asking that. Covey hunted very well last year, and she will be hunting again this year. We have to get a little weight off of her because she has been enjoying the easy life after hunting season. Come here, Covey. People want to see you. Come on, get your head up here where we can see. Can you get up? Yeah. Come on, pup. Come on, let me... Yeah, come on. We can get you up. Can you stand on that back leg? That's kind of bum. Here we go. Get those paws up there. Say hi to everybody. Woohoo! Yeah, kisses from me. I appreciate that. We're not going to show them your bottom side. That's getting a little wider than it needs to be. You looking forward to going for a bit of a run today? Yeah? Big time. Get some of that weight off of you. She'll be raring to go come hunting season. All right, let's see what sort of things Betsy picked up. Now, Betsy, where did you get these questions?
Those questions are from our website that people write in.
Okay.
We're a little backed up.
To the Ron Spomer Outdoors website.
Right.
Comments, yeah. They often get backed up there because I never get click notices on this. So at any rate, these are questions that come in on our website. And because I don't get a ding signal of any kind, I don't necessarily know a new one has popped up. So Betsy will go through these every week and say, oops, we need to answer some of these. So here they are. This is Ron from the People's Republic, it says here. I imagine it said People's Republic of California.
Massachusetts.
Of what?
Massachusetts.
People's Republic of Massachusetts. So he says, "Hi, Ron. I'm having difficult time communicating with you. My efforts to give you... Oh, my goodness. They failed to elicit... Oh, see, he's writing to me at the website, ronspomeroutdoors.com, and I'm not seeing them. So he wonders what the heck's going on. Yeah, John, I'm not trying to shortchange you or ignore you or anything here. What I was explaining about not seeing all these, by the time I get to the list, it just goes on and on and on. And before I get through it all, something else pops up, and I forget to get back or where I left off. And I'm sorry. I'm just falling apart there. But, John, you just let me know what you need. It doesn't say anything here. It says you don't want to be pushy, but don't worry about that. I'm not thinking you're pushy at all. I apologize to you for not having gotten to these. So try again. Betsy, make it a point to check on this. He wants to give me updates on his rifle project. Okay, well, John, I'd love to hear about your rifle project and how you're making out with it and all the rest of it. So keep trying, partner. Sorry about that. Well, let's see if we'll do a little better with Cody from Wyoming. Hey, Ron, I got a possible correction for you. I've followed you for years, and I generally find that your videos and podcasts are thorough, fact based, but they're suffering from the typical outdoor writer bias. I recently watched two of your videos on lever actions for hunting. And the first was about 60 minutes on lever action rifles and deer hunting, and somehow, in 60 minutes, you never managed to mention the Savage Model 99 or its contributions. Well, I understand bias as I typically root for the underdog myself. I think both are natural. Several weeks later, I was blessed to scroll onto your video of the Model 99. Thank you very much for producing this one. Now, on to my issue. In the video, you mentioned that Savage borrowed the rotary magazine technology from Mannlicher Schonauer. Well, my sources tell me that that action was developed and patented by MS in 1900. Savage, in conjunction with Marlin, was producing rifles with a rotary magazine at least 5 years prior to that. So if MS was developing the action, Savage brought it to market prior to Mannlicher Schonauer. They borrowed from whom? I don't know. Savage has been maligned or just left out for decades. My selfish side is okay with this as it keeps their products more affordable. In support of this, I offer the following scenarios. The Model 70 rules the limelight. I'm not knocking its prowess, but the Model 30 was an excellent rifle also. In distant third place is the Savage Model 1920. By the way, the 30 was a Remington Model 30. That was essentially the Enfield. During the war, the Remington was hired to build a bunch of rifles for the war effort, and the easiest, fastest one to produce was the Enfield. So the Brits gave them permission to do that, and they cranked them out, something like 600,000 of them, I think. So that was the Remington. Now, what about the Savage 1920? I didn't know about that one. It's a svelte, lightweight, mountain-style, controlled round feed Mauser-style rifle chambered in the hard-hitting, for its day, 300 Savage. It beat the Remington Model 30, and yes, even the Model 54. That was the Winchester that preceded the Model 70. It beat those to market as the first commercially manufactured sporting bolt-action rifle. And yet, from you, crickets on the 1920 Savage. I'm sorry, I didn't know about it at all, but you got me big time, Cody. Savage followed that 1920 bolt action with the Model 40 and 45 Super Sporters. Don't know those either. This model was maligned with headspace issues caused by its rear-locking lugs. Somehow the 47 psi of the mighty 300 Savage was compressing the steel in the bolt enough to create issues. Sounds like Cody doesn't think so. I kind of doubt it myself. Amazingly, though, Schultz and Larson managed to escape this criticism on their rear-locking rifles, chambered for the 358 Norma Magnum. Somehow, 47,000 psi achieved what 64,000 psi could not. Well, I welcome your response, and please correct my misconceptions or inaccurate information. Well, Cody, I really can't because you know more about these Savages than I. But I do agree with you that there was probably some misinformation flying around if they were thinking that that rear-locking lug bolt system wasn't handling the pressures and leading to excessive headspace. I agree with that one. That's kind of crazy. So, but stuff like that happens quite often. Someone will bring up something like burns barrels out too fast, or it's inherently inaccurate, and that will build by word of mouth. People will repeat it without really testing it, and then you end up with a bit of a myth that can put some cartridges into an early grave. Happens fairly often, actually. But I will make it a point to do a little research on the early bolt-action Savages. I know when I was a kid, my uncle had several Savage rifles. 22, somebody had a Savage shotgun, I think it was a pump. And one of my cousins had a Savage bolt action of some kind. Now, today, of course, Savage bolt actions are widely known and respected for being really accurate right out of the box. There are many complaints that they are sort of an ugly-looking action, which you have to be a real discerning riflemen to notice the differences. It's pretty subtle, but if you do have an eye for a classic look and you think like the Winchester Model 70 is the example of the best looking of a bolt action rifle, in comparison, yeah, the Savage 110, 116, 111s, all the different variations of their basic bolt action, they do look a little clunky and they're a little bit heavy, but boy, do they shoot. And a lot of guys are just loving them. So Savage, I think, has come a long, long way since the early days, because I don't know that anybody doesn't know about the Savage bolt actions today. And I think Savage is probably more concerned with that than what they were way back when. All right, now let's see who's coming up next. Brad, somewhere in Canada, the frozen north. Unless he's just across the border from us, then he's just the chilly north. Dear Ron, I am new to hunting and shooting. I fell as I get older. I need to get more involved, as I believe it's something that my 3 boys would or should get to know when they come of age, so that they learn the proper way to handle a firearm. I grew up around guns my whole life, living in northern Manitoba. Most of my friends and fathers were hunters to some extent, and some just believed that a household always needed to have a rifle or shotgun, even if they didn't hunt much. My father was not into it at all, and we had no firearms in the house. Not sure why it was, but just what it was. I never really wanted a gun or to go hunting. When I had kids, twin boys, and an oopsie daisy, several years later, the idea of gun ownership slowly started to sink in as an afterthought, which over time became more prevalent in my mind. Well, my brother-in-law, who is an avid hunter, asked me if I'd like to go moose hunting with him. Well, I did, and I enjoyed it very much. I didn't shoot or anything. I just wanted to see if I would enjoy doing it. And if I did, I'd start this whole Canadian gun licensing process, which is an obstacle, but it's what one must do in this country. And as a Canadian, I do not see any issues with making sure someone who has a gun knows what the implications are and to handle it in a safe manner. Well, my brother-in-law uses a 30-06 and a 30-30 as backup, and he has harvested moose, caribou, and deer without issues using both of those. So I first pictured my bush rifle for dual purpose, knowing that when I'm in the bush, I would stand a better chance at getting to the target, and if I wanted to learn on iron sights before I got something bigger, I would be teased by my brother-in-law because I bought a Smith & Wesson lever action 1854 and a 45 caliber, and not a 30-30 that he recommended. I don't care, though, as in my neck of the woods, we have only deer in an area where my shot would be maybe 50 to a maximum of 100 yards away. Well, I think that's plenty enough for that job. This rifle, this Smith & Wesson 1854 can handle that. So now I can get 1.5-inch groups at 75 yards with it, and I used a 240 grain bullet. That ought to handle it. It's a 270 grain hammer down, but in my opinion, it's good enough. Now this fall, I plan on going moose and deer hunting, where I will actually get a chance to shoot something pretty far away. So I purchased another rifle. I plan on getting, or I'm going to purchase one, 7 Rem Mag or 7 PRC. But I watched the 7-part video on the 2 cartridges, and there was a point that was made in the series where they stated if you're going to be hunting in a 300-yard maximum area, his advice was, why get either? I would not be taking advantage of the benefits of a 7mm cartridge. And with those 2 Magnum cartridges hard on barrels, well, his advice was to maybe just get a 308 or a 708. This idea really hit me and caused a bit of a brain twitch. Made sense, though. I'm new to hunting. Ammo would be cheaper. I don't have to worry about barrel life as much. So once again, I had to tell my 2 friends who are hunters that I didn't listen to them once again, and I bought a 308 instead of the 7mm they recommended. I'll save some money on ammo while I become more experienced with shooting, and I believe everything I've seen and read, it'll work out great in my area. And if I really get into it, well, there'll still be a 7 PRC or a 7 backcountry in the future. I have watched tons of videos on your channel and on Backfire and Hootie Hoo, so good information I get out of those, and I really appreciate all that knowledge. If the same technology is making us a little bat poop crazy, too much information. Hopefully I made the right decision with my 308. Most of all, I hope I don't disappoint the man, the myth, the legend, Ron Spomer. Don't worry about that, buddy. Oh, by the way, the rifle I bought is a Springfield Waypoint 2020 carbon barrel 308. Wow, you didn't just get an old fuddy-duddy 308. You upgraded to the fully modern carbon barrel Springfield Waypoint 2020. That's a pretty hot property right there, man. You should do well with that. Of course, you're going to disappoint me because you got a 308 instead of 708, but I can let you get by with that one. No, you're going to do fine. You're a real practical thinker here because, yeah, it's always pressure from your friends saying, oh, you ought to get this, you ought to get that, which is fine, but generally those friends are biased because they have one. They might not know what else is out there. Just because he's got a 7 that he loves and he says that's what you have to get, he's probably never tried anything else. So what does he know? And as I was saying earlier, I have tried most of it. And I've even gotten to hunt with a heck of a lot of it. And that makes a difference. Just looking at the numbers and the ballistics, shooting some targets, yeah, that's informative. But hunting with it, I think, pushes it over the edge into the next category of experience. So as you know, and everybody pretty much knows, that 308 can handle anything out to 300 or even 400 yards if you're a good shooter. Plenty of power, good bullet selection. As I always say, just think of it as a 30-06 short. Comes generally within 100 feet per second of the 30-06, so why not? And then, as you said, you can always step up to a 7 of whatever kind if you want to, if you need that extra flat trajectory and less wind deflection and all the rest. But yeah, you're pragmatic in your selections, and I think that's important. Too many of us get nitpicky, and we just have to have one tiny little tweak, something better than the others. But good old 308 will pretty much handle everything. All right, let's go to Pennsylvania, see what Chad has to say. Ron, first off, I love your podcast. See, I like Chad already. How can you not like a guy like this, Betsy? You must have thrown me this one for a bone after the other one, calling me names. Ron, first of all, I love your podcast. I cannot emphasize that enough. Ever since I found it, I have been binge listening and getting great education. I listened to your Q&A the other day where you were asked about what 5 calibers should you get, and my answer would have been right in there with the ballpark. I think I'd have taken a 204 Ruger instead of the 22-250. But that's neither here nor there. I was just having a conversation with a friend who recently bought 50 acres and moved out of the city. All he's got is his 9mm handgun, and he's no longer working too much to hunt. But that's all changing now, so he sold all of his long guns years ago, but when he moved out west for work, he needs to buy something new, it looks like here. Let's see. It brought up a great topic. If you wanted to start a new gun collection, that's where he's going, and you have a $1,000 budget, what would you buy? Oh boy. New, used, whatever. How would you spend it if you wanted to be able to hunt for North American game? All of it. And after you buy your first guns, what do you save for next? I think this is a topic that a lot of your listeners would love to hear. Thanks, Ron. Chad. Well, Chad, for $1,000, you're not going to get a lot. You're not going to have a gun collection. You're going to have a gun. Yes, there are some $400, maybe even $300 ones out there, new. And then, of course, used, you can get it a little bit lower. You get to that little bit higher price range. I think more of them are available in that $600 to $1,000 range. But that's just your bare rifle. Now you have to put a scope on it. Unless you can find one that has open sights and you're okay with that. A lot of people can get really good with open sights, especially if you remove the factory rear sight and put a peep sight on. Skinner Sights sells some really great peep sights, and I've put a few on my rifles, and boy, does it make a difference. Quicker target acquisition for me, at least, and it makes me more accurate. So you might consider that. You'd almost have to for just $1,000, because say, okay, you got $1,000. Gosh, that scope is probably going to run you $300 and up. Now, remember, we did a test on a $30 scope one time. It was a CV Life. They don't pay me anything. I don't know those people or anything like that.
I bought it on Amazon.
Betsy bought it on Amazon so I could do a video on what a cheap scope was and don't waste your money. And it turned out I couldn't break it with a 375 H&H. And it was precise and sharp, and it was just amazing. So you can take a chance on something like that, but honestly, I think it's going to work for you. So that would be a good way to save money. Now you can buy a $600 or $700 rifle, $30 scope. You probably put $40 into the mounts on it. You're getting in under $1,000. So yeah, you can do it. Now you have to pick which cartridge you're going to shoot. So you're looking at all-around cartridges. Well, guess what they're going to say? 30-06, 308. But really, pretty much anything from 308 Winchester up in the 30s will do well for you. You'll keep your prices down with the 308. And in the 7s, I firmly believe that the 7mm can do anything that the 30 calibers will do. There's not that much difference between them, but because the bullets are a little narrow on the 7s, you're going to have higher BCs, and that'll give you just a slight advantage in wind deflection and often in drop. And that's considering similar cartridges. And that would, of course, like the 308, neck down to 7 is the 708. So they have the same powder capacity, but the 7's a little more efficient with the higher BC bullet. Not a huge difference. We're talking a matter of an inch or less. But just something to consider. So I would stay away from the super magnums because they're going to cost more for the ammo. They're going to have a little more recoil, a little less pleasant to shoot. And you're not going to shoot as much because the price of your ammo is going to make you go, maybe I don't need another box. So do consider that. Yeah, I think we're really coming down to that 30-06, 270, 708, 308, somewhere in that category. And you're going to be able to handle everything. I have taken moose with the 708, taken elk with, 308. It's all doable. Big bears, same thing. So don't worry about it. This year, if all goes according to plan, I'm going to hunt a grizzly up in Alaska where they have a heck of an overpopulation in an area. They're trying to trim it down. They actually let non-residents buy 2 grizzly tags and 5 black bear tags for one hunt in one unit. Crazy. But they just have lost all their caribou and moose. The last time I was up there hunting, one of the locals told me that he watches these bears come out in the spring and kill moose after moose after moose. So they've learned how to do it pretty effectively. At any rate, I'm using a 338 Federal. If the rifle gets built in time, it's a Park West Arms Model 97 synthetic stock and all that for that nasty weather. And not a lot of people shoot a 338 Federal, but I've used it before and I think it's probably a pretty good option. I think I'm going to give that one a try. But that's another one where you have trouble buying your ammunition. So, well, let's go to Norway and see what Germund has to say. Hi, Ron. I am planning to buy a new barrel for my Blaser R8. The current barrel is in .223 Remington, but I need a more suitable and legal caliber for moose hunting. The caliber that is relevant, or the calibers that are relevant, are the 6.5 by 55, the 9.3 by 63, the 8 by 57, and the 308 Winchester. Well, because I already have reloading equipment for those calibers. So the question is, what would you recommend? Notice that moose in Norway are a bit smaller than in North America, and we shoot calves, cows, as well as bulls. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, Germund, I think you've got some great selections there. These are European cartridges and calibers, pretty popular over there. That 9.3 by 63, 8 by 57, yeah, those are both great. And given the relative size of your moose compared to ours, and I would think you would have no trouble with the 308 Winchester. So make your decision based on what you prefer, really, and what's probably more accessible for you in terms of ammunition. Now, Betsy has the R8 Blaser with a 308 Winchester barrel and one with a 375 H&H barrel. She loves them both, but boy, that 308 is pretty impressive stuff. She's taken a lot of game over there with that thing, so I can certainly get behind that. But I can understand if you have those European cartridges, they would be quite effective as well. So good luck with that one, Germund. Now, Zach from Oregon. Hey, Ron, I just inherited another rifle. Oh, grandfather's coveted 1962 Model 700 Remington in .270 Winchester. I plan to take it on a blacktail hunt this fall, and I need some bullet recommendations. All the ammo he had were some old lead-tipped round nose bullets, and I want to shoot something more modern. While I want to try copper bullets, I know that they tend to be inaccurate in rifles fouled with lead-based bullets, and I don't particularly want to send a bunch of solvents down this beautiful piece of history. What do you recommend? Well, Zach, from a guy who was around in 1962, I don't consider that to be a particularly old antique or anything,
No,
but
no, you are an antique,
I
Ron.
might be an antique. Maybe that's why. You know, I don't have any issues with putting solvents down the barrels. I mean, barrels have been made to be cleaned and are cleaned regularly and always have been. And solvents aren't going to hurt your barrel at all. I would clean the darn thing, give it its best chance to shoot well. I don't know that I'd want to go hunting with a barrel that bore has not been cleaned in who knows how long. I would just recommend that you clean it and then try some copper. I mean, I am always advocating for copper bullets. I find that they generally shoot more accurately on average than a lot of the lead core bullets, and I love their terminal performance. You don't get the quite the BC numbers in the same length bullets as you would with lead core, but I would give those a try. So get some solvent and clean that barrel down to bare metal and see how it does. And if it shoots your copper bullets well, bingo, there you go. If not, and you want to go with a little more traditional stuff, of course, the old partition bullet from Nosler is hard to beat. Been around since 1948, but it's still a good one. And then they have the Nosler AccuBond, which are pretty similar in terminal performance, but a little more modern design, sleeker shape, higher BC. You can get some good advantages with that one in a 270. And then you've got your Federal Terminal Ascent. It's pretty hot these days. Good little option. And then plenty of bonded bullets as well. Yeah, there's just a lot of them out there. You'll just have to try a few and see what your rifle likes. It will tell you what it prefers. And good luck. It'll be fun for you, I'm sure, hunting with your grandfather's old rifle. Now, Lauren, oh, hey, your neighbor, Zach, in Oregon, his name is Lauren. He says, hey, Ron, I enjoy your podcast, but you got it wrong. In podcast 410, Fun for Shotgunners, even though I like the 28 gauge better, you tried to answer the guy from Washington as to why the deer population in the western states are declining. You did make a valiant but uninformed attempt. Oh, I hate being uninformed. When you talked about habitat. The actual issue is the cougar populations. In the western states of Washington, Oregon, and California, they have handcuffed managing the cougar and bear populations away from the wildlife agencies by stopping using dogs for cougar and bear hunting in the 1990s. Since then, the cougar population has exploded. A cougar kills a deer every 10 to 24 days, and even more when a bear steals that kill, which is very common. It is estimated that cougars kill 30,000 or more deer a year in Oregon alone, so you can imagine how devastating this is, compounded over the years. In these western states, we really need to control the cougar and bear populations. Even though you can get an over-the-counter cougar tag, the impact is minimal. Thanks for the opportunity to set the record straight. Well, you're quite welcome, Lauren. I'm not sure that you've set it straight because controversial issue. Now, certainly big predators like cougars take deer. And bear, black bear, have been shown in many studies to be the primary predator on calves, especially elk and moose calves, and deer to a little bit smaller extent, but they've just gotten really efficient at it, mostly because of their noses, I think. They've learned to search an area and find that little calf or fawn and take it out, and boy, in some places, they are so effective that there's just almost no recruitment to the population. Cougars I don't hear quite as much on, but they have been effective predators forever in this country. And as you all know, we had plenty of deer and elk a long time ago, and we also had plenty of cougar. But you add in all the changes that have happened with settlement since the mid-1800s, and all this stuff accumulatively piles up. And you can't discount reservoirs, annual highway mortality. My goodness, we run over a lot of deer in this country, and you got to add that in too. It's easy to gripe about the predators, but the automobile is awfully destructive. And then you throw in the habitat changes, especially on winter range down in the valleys. Those poor animals come off the high country for the winter, try to make it down there, and discover all their habitat has been used up, either for farming or ranching, or worse yet, cities and housing development, and then they have to get across the highways to get to the food sources. Now, in some places, ranching and farming actually provides winter food for deer. It's not all just one side of a coin here. But when there's a lot of intensive agriculture in the valleys and that's all taken away and given to the cattle, what are the deer going to eat? What are the elk going to eat? So I wouldn't agree with you that the main problem is cougar. We have plenty of cougar in Idaho too. Of course, here we hunt them, and guys still complain that the cougar are killing all the deer. But it certainly can't be that the cougar are taking everything. But boy, when you add up cougar kills, bear kills, coyote kills, even bobcat will take a few, all of the natural predators plus the unnatural predators plus the changes in the habitat, yeah, it does add up. All right, Harry from Santa Fe, Texas. Ron, I got my hands on a 1961 Model 70 in your favorite 7-rem mag. I don't have a problem with the caliber, but that barrel, it was originally a 264 Winchester. Wonder what happened here. They simply marked through the factory stamp and they hand-scribed 7mm on it. Also, they removed the front sight and they did a lousy job grinding on the barrel. So it shoots okay, but even though I had the barrel mic'd and it was seemingly okay, I still don't trust the bore to be correct. That's because it recoils more than a 300 Win Mag I've also used in a Model 70. The 7mm loads okay, cycles fine, and in true Model 70 fashion, it otherwise is a great rifle. But I do not trust the shade work more done on it here. I just can't feel warm and fuzzy about shooting it. So I have two choices, and here is my question. Should I try to find a good Winchester barrel for it, or convert it to another caliber, knowing about the bolt cartridge size and et cetera, et cetera? So what's your opinion? Greatly appreciated. By the way, I watch and enjoy your shows immensely, sir. You are Hitchcock 45, not Hitchcock. Hickok 45. This is not Alfred. But I get you. Hickok 45, and you were the only two I ever watched. Thank you, sir, and keep shooting straight. Well, I really appreciate that, Harry. I'll pass that on to Mr. Hickok 45. And that's funny. I like that. Hitchcock 45. He should get a new theme song. The one from Psycho. That would be good. Okay, yeah, what to do about that barrel? You were wise to get that thing mic'd out and all, check for headspace, I assume, and everything, and it does work, so I think it's probably just fine. But if it makes you feel a little loosey-goosey, you can't shoot it well, yeah, you might as well get rid of it. I think I just get rid of the barrel and rebarrel it to whatever you want. Now, in that head size, of course, you've got a lot of great options, but Model 70... let's see. Yeah, you get away with a lot of different things on that one. So, I don't know. You do what you would like on it. If it really shoots well and you like the 7-rem mag, which I do, of course, I would probably stick with it. But I can understand. I once had a shotgun that I got a ding in the barrel falling down some rocks while chucker hunting, no surprise. And it still shot and all, but I just never felt really good about it. And sure enough, it eventually split where the little bit of a dent was. It got work hardened by the shot going through it until that cracked open. So I was lucky not to have a major crack develop before I discovered the little one while I was cleaning it. And I got rid of that, got a new barrel put on it. And then one time I shot the wrong round in a 257. It was a 25-06 barrel, and I shot a 7mm 08 in it. Fortunately, it was a really soft lead core bullet, and it squeezed down and got through instead of blowing something up. And everything checked out okay on that one, but I sort of cringed every time they pulled the trigger thereafter, so I sent it back to Dakota, and they put a new barrel on it. So I understand where you're coming from on this one, buddy. Yeah, I think getting the barrel is the way to go. So good luck with that one. Now, John in Texas says, good day, Mr. Spomer. I've come to listen to your show and podcast quite frequently, and I appreciate the depth and variety of knowledge you provide. Well, the only reason it sounds like I have a depth of knowledge is because I only talk about stuff I know about.
No, I give you questions that you haven't seen.
Well, that's true. Betsy throws these wingers at me, and I just have to kind of guess at those. But, yeah, I've studied this stuff long enough that I got a fair amount of knowledge about it. But if I don't know it, you guys, I am depending on you to straighten me out. And thank you. You've been doing a pretty good job of that all along. So I'm happy to admit when I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to blow smoke. I'll let you know when I'm guessing, and then I'll ask for your advice. So, at any rate, what is he going to say about me now? My question, John says, is minimizing meat loss. I recently purchased a Browning X-Bolt in 30-06. Although my 7mm 08 was my top choice, a good deal showed itself in a caliber that will do anything I need it to and quite a bit more, and can be found just about anywhere, so I got the 30-06. The thing is that I've grown up hunting with 30-30s and 223s. I've killed full-grown deer with a 55-grain FMJ to the boiler room, but I don't recommend that practice. Yeah, I don't either. But now that I have a 30-06, I'm thinking about bullet choice for hunting. I've heard from my father and grandfather that their 270s are a bit overkill for the deer around here, and so I've been thinking about how to minimize meat loss. So far, I've decided a heavier bonded bullet would be helpful, and the rifle shoots longer bullets more accurately so far anyway. Recently, I was thinking about efficacy of FMJ ammo in hunting, though. Would an FMJ in 30-06 perform any differently terminally than the little 223? Would the bullet deform or zip through? Either way, would it be an ethical choice of ammunition with which to harvest medium-sized game? I appreciate your insight, and I look forward to hearing back how I can better hunt honestly and shoot straight. Well, I appreciate that, John. Thanks for paying good attention to that. I do not recommend FMJs, and in most states they are illegal for game hunting. I'm not sure about Texas, but I'd be surprised if you could use them, and even if you can, I certainly don't recommend it. They're essentially like shooting with a target point arrow. It just zips right through minimal surface area for tearing things up. Now, a curved ogive, most bullets have these days, will help with tumbling, and that can sometimes initiate quite a bit of damage, but I wouldn't depend on it, no. But getting a harder bullet is a good way to minimize meat loss. Now, something interesting about meat loss. The general idea, and it seems to hold true, is that the higher velocity of your bullet, the more potential damage you get from that energy dispersing and tearing things up and causing some meat damage. Mostly, though, it's bloodshot. It pushes blood into areas where it isn't normally found, and then it clots up and it looks terrible. But really, if you scrape it away, the muscles underneath are fine. But it's a little more work to do that too, so I can understand not wanting it. But the other thing is, if your bullet is soft and it breaks up, then you're starting to throw fragments around and you get more potential meat damage. Another good reason to use a tougher bullet like the coppers, which minimize that to a large degree. And some of the harder lead core bullets, the bonded ones or the segmented ones like a A-frame, for instance, can have similar performance. But the thing that's really weird about this is that I have noticed over the years that I can get incredible bloodshot meat damage from even a broadhead. I've mentioned several times now that a few years ago I was hunting down in Kansas and arrowed a deer. My goodness, it was bloodshot from the neck clear back to the rump, and it just is a broadhead shooting through the shoulders of that thing. But he took off running, as arrow shot deer usually do, and that pumps the blood through the system. It's leaking internally from the broken arteries and such, and that spreads all of that between the muscle groups. So be aware that that can happen even with an arrow. But I think you're on the right track, John. I think you're on the right track by going with a harder bullet. And the other thing you mentioned was a heavier bullet, and that'll help as well. So you're going to get good penetration, shoot right through probably, and minimize that bloodshot problem. But go behind the shoulder. There's not a lot of meat there to damage anyway. So keep your shots off the major muscle groups, and that'll help the most. Well, all right, John, it looks like you are our last one up. Betsy, thank you for pulling these together for us and for not giving me too many of the, Ron, you're a useless doofus and you're obsolete. There's only one this time. That's not bad. I must have been a good boy all week. So don't forget the Father's Day knife gift, guys. I think your pa or your grandpa would really appreciate a knife like this. Knives of Alaska is the place to get it. And don't forget, shopping for your varmint hunting needs this spring, Midwest Gunworks probably have what you're looking for. We'll see you guys all next time on Honest and Shoot Straight.